Good afternoon, everyone. The International Parking and Mobility Institute presents today's Learning Lab, Parking Intelligence Dashboards at the Miami Parking Authority, presented by In Parking. My name is Kenny, and I'll be assisting in moderating today's presentation. As a reminder, today's presentation is being recorded. We will make the recording available online on IPMI's YouTube channel within a few days. Before we start, I'd like to go over a few quick housekeeping rules for today. This Learning Lab will last 60 minutes with a Q&A session at the end. If you have questions for today's speakers, please feel free to queue up a question at any time by typing it in the chat. We will get to as many questions as time allows. It is now my pleasure to introduce Santiago Morales, CEO in Parking, to get us started. Santiago, the audience is all yours.
Thank you so much, Kenny. Good afternoon. Thank you again. Just to reiterate, appreciate your time. I know everyone has a day job, and so thank you very much for joining us on today's Learning Lab on how the Miami Parking Authority wrangles data. As previously mentioned, I'm the CEO of In Parking. I actually got into the industry in 2016, thanks to when I started working with the Miami Parking Authority. And quite frankly, it's been an interesting and fun-filled journey. And so hopefully some of the work we've done there, the MPA team can kind of expand on. This is just a short agenda for today. Some introductions, the overview of MPA, overview of challenges faced with data, how MPA uses parking intelligence to make decisions, and as Kenny previously mentioned, 15 minutes of Q&A. So just to kind of simplify this and focus really on the meat of how MPA works, I'll just go briefly over all introductions of all the expert panelists today. First, we have Mr. Henry Espinosa, Director of Information Technology. Mr. Espinosa has been working for the MPA for over 9 years. He's actually one of the individuals that is that back office that no one sees, but is critical to overall operations, as all integrations, all the technology that's used for revenue control, for managing their website, as well as permit validations, that's all managed by Henry and his team. And just kind of a side note, so Henry studied psychology, and he worked in the Miami-Dade County prison system. By the way, I'm not making this up. And with criminals, with mentally ill criminals, and he got so bored of it that he quit and decided to get into parking. So just kind of, and this is all true. Just a little background on Henry. We have Mr. Angel Diaz, Director of Parking Operations at the Miami Parking Authority. Mr. Diaz actually began his parking career as a collections, i.e. the meter collection. So he really has that boots on the ground. He's worked in this industry from the bottom all the way to the top as Director of Operations. So his level of depth and breadth of knowledge on operations is second to none. We have Mr. Victor Rosario here. He's a Senior Manager of Operations. Mr. Rosario has been working with the MPA for over 20 years. He's also was in charge of the Jackson Health System, which is our largest public health institution here in South Florida. And his level of deep analysis has provided the Miami Parking Authority further understanding of on-street parking. And he's going to dive into that a little bit later on. And of course, I already introduced myself. So without further ado, I'm going to hand this off to Mr. Angel Diaz. And so we can skip this one a little bit here. So Mr. Diaz, you have the floor.
Thank you, Santiago. Good afternoon, everybody. Again, yes, I'm Angel Diaz, Director of Operations for the Miami Parking Authority. To Santiago's point, I started as a meter collector back in 1993, and totally different hairstyle back then as well, just an FYI. And basically, I started at the bottom and just kind of worked my way up, and kind of managed and dealt with and touched almost everything that has to do with operations over the years. I also worked for 5 years for SP Plus on the private sector. So I left my parking authority, left for 5 years. I worked in the city of Richmond, Virginia, where I oversaw or managed the contract there, which had to do with both on and off street facilities. And then shortly thereafter, after about 2.5 years, I was able to go to Santa Monica, California, again with SP Plus to oversee that contract. That was more of an off-street garages and lot portfolio, where they also had a lot of big events. They had the Santa Monica Pier, So very event heavy driven location as well. As everybody else in the parking industry, I had a 3-year plan to be in parking, and now it's 30 years later, and I'm still here. So I'm sure I share that story with others. So just a little bit on the Miami Parking Authority, who we are. So luckily, we are an authority, meaning that we are self-funded. So we basically generate, we work and do everything that we do off the revenue that we generated from the majority is on-street revenue, but as well as off-street and some contracts that we manage. Being an authority gives us the opportunity to basically, we have a 5-panel board of directors that we respond to. So that gives us a lot of flexibility with, procurement, with piloting, with purchasing equipment, and just bringing new ideas to reality a lot quicker. The reason that is quicker is for you that work for government locations. You can understand that if you have a commission or a council that you have to respond to or get approval for items, there's a lot more red tape, a lot more paperwork that you have to do, and also a lot more politics. So although there are a lot of politics in Miami, we are in the news often because of our politics. We do have the ability to run a pretty smooth operation. It's almost run like a private operation or a private operator, for lack of a better term, and it helps us, try things like what we do and try to be innovative and test new technologies out and things of that nature. So with that, if you can go to the next slide. So MPA partners. So this is kind of where we put our private operator hat, if I can kind of use that as an example. So we manage the Jackson Health System, which Santiago pointed out earlier, which is the largest emergency trauma center, probably in the state of Florida, if I'm not mistaken. And so it's a 24/7 operation, and we manage all the garages and the lots, and it's very, very demanding location. And there's a lot of moving parts there. And the reason I kind of want to explain all this to you, because it'll explain the reason why we are sharing and going down this path within parking to kind of better manage our own asset as far as the other, along with all the other assets that we manage as well. So City of Doral is a interlocal agreement we did with the city that's just north of us. Just west of us. And basically, we implemented an on-street program for them. So they have the mobile app and enforcement and towing as well. So we do that for them. We've been doing that for fairly new, about 3 months now. So, we did a whole campaign, a whole rollout, marketing, all that stuff. So again, something that we need to be able to gauge and manage, understand, and how we're performing, and so on. Next, we have the Miami-Dade County Parks. So we manage the parking for the Miami-Dade County Parks that is throughout the county. So it stretches over, about 20 miles in either direction of the county. So we manage all those assets as well for them. And we do enforcement, mobile, and pay stations as well at that location. Miami Marlins, again, MLB, we manage that operation as well, where we do the free flow. I don't know if you heard of that. So we implemented the free flow program there. Totally different operation where we manage just event venue, baseball games, concerts, things of that nature. So that's another example of what we do. Miami-Dade College is a local college here in the county, and we manage one of their parking lots, and we're expanding to manage possibly their parking garages as well. And then FDOT is the Department of Transportation. So we manage any parking asset that they have within the city of Miami city limits. And again, that's something that we might grow and expand into the county and other parts of the state as well. So just wanted to give you kind of an idea of what we manage outside of just the Miami Parking Authority. And the reason why I wanted to explain that to you, because with that we have we have revenue control, we have, pay by phone, mobile apps, we have the pay stations, we have LPRs, we have enforcement, we have towing, we have parking sensors if they're above ground or on the ground. So all that is data that we have to manage, understand, ingest all this different information from different vendors and make sense of it for everybody so that we can understand and give results that they're comfortable with and understand, and at the same time be fully transparent. So with all these assets that we manage, obviously the budget, the expenses, all of that is very important, and being able to see that in one dashboard really helps us manage our assets and understand what's going on a day-to-day basis, on a monthly basis, on a year-to-date basis, or comparing, budget, actual, and prior year. So all that is important. And to add a little bit more content to that is the actual added values that we're going to have with this new in-parking solution. So besides the revenue, the flow birds, the pay by phone, the ski data, the parks equipment, all that stuff, we get all that information, and that's great. But on top of that, we also are adding things like towing, like how many vehicles do we tow in an area? How does that affect the revenue? If they see cars being towed, does that assist us? Do we see a spike in the revenue? Things like that are the types of things that we look for as far as how we are productive, and if it actually is a value add to have that. Enforcement as well. Just having an LPR driving through an area or enforcing a zone, outside of the compliance that we know you have to enforce in order to get compliance, but does having a physical body or a vehicle in the area, how does that affect the revenue? So being able to try to pull that information and add it to this platform is something that we see as a very big value add to us, and helps us kind of manage our asset and understand, like, yeah, this is a tool that we can use, and it does make sense. It does add value. So these are the things that we wanted to kind of do across all the portfolios that we manage, and just understand that besides the revenue and the citations and the compliance, do all these added how can you say, all these things that are in this ecosystem, does this actually make a difference? And be able to gauge that now is something that we are excited to be able to look forward to and do in the near future. So I kind of just wanted to give you an overall understanding of what we do as a parking authority and everything that we oversee. And then for you guys that are in operations, you understand the different pieces of the puzzle that you kind of got to put together and make sense of it all, and evaluate and see how, what the trends are and how you can improve in enforcement or hours of operation or the rates and things like that. So again, having this all in something that works and is easy to understand and manage, this tool really will really help with that. So with that, I'll kind of pass the baton to Henry, where he can, further elaborate on this item. Henry?
Yeah, thanks, Angel. So yeah, Angel pointed out, kind of the complexity of our operation here. And just to give you a little bit of background, when I first started here at the Miami Parking Authority, we had 3 different on-street meter, 3 different types of on-street meter machines from 3 completely different vendors. We had 4 different types of revenue control systems from different vendors. We also had the pay by phone app, and then we also did things like selling decals and hang tags and that kind of stuff. One of the things that we've done in the time that we've been here is we've consolidated quite a bit of that. We've consolidated down to a single revenue control system vendor and a single on-street kiosk vendor. So that has simplified things a bit. But one of the challenges to managing our data has always been, Flowbird, for example, which is our on-street meter vendor, has a great dashboard, gives us all of our data, and can even give us alarms and all that kind of stuff. And the pay by phone app can do the same thing. But unless you really combine the two, you don't get really meaningful information for any given zone. So as we started consolidating some of this, we realized that it's not easy to collect the data from all of these different sources. And so that's kind of when we started using the platform that we're using now. It's simple enough to create just a central database and dump all the data in it and create a bunch of dashboards. But it starts getting very, very complex when you're dealing with this many vendors and this many entities. Because for us, it's not just a challenge of having pay by phone, for example. It's that we have pay by phone for multiple entities that we manage. So we manage the pay by phone. We need an insight into the pay by phone sales at Marlins Park, independent of the sales at that we manage for the city of Miami or city of Doral or any of the other locations that we manage. In addition to that, one of the things that's very challenging is when you're looking at a given asset, a parking lot, an on-street location, a garage, just looking at the revenue control systems or the payment sources isn't enough. Particularly for budgeting purposes, it's important to understand not only gross revenue, but expenses associated with that location, and any additional costs that may be involved with running the location. So one of the things that we've done with this particular tool is the first data source that we actually plugged into this was our actual financial system. And so that allows us to pull up for any given entity all of the revenues and expenses for those items, and even we can even compare that against the budget that we create for those particular entities. On top of that, we start throwing in all of the transaction data from our revenue control systems, from the pay by phone app, from our on-street machines. And that way, not only can we see discrepancies between what's coming in from the individual vendors to what's actually in the bank, but we can also throw in additional data. And you can see on this screen here, for example, we are collecting and displaying the information about the number of tows that we have per location, and also we're planning to add the information about our citations in here, the violations. This is important for a couple of different reasons. For one, it may be important just to know how many violations we have in a given area, or how many tows we have in a given area. But it is also important to collect this information so that we can try to figure out what impact one variable is having on another. So, for example, if we see an area that has very low enforcement and we allocate more enforcement to that area, it would be, obviously we would expect to see the violations go up, but we also want to be able to compare that to what happens to revenue, perhaps 30 or 60 days trailing. Are we actually modifying customer behavior and making it more likely that they will pay, as opposed to just parking and not complying with the payment requirements. So that's, to me, one of the really important things about having a dashboard like this with everything in one place, so that we can compare how one variable affects other variables in the system. And the other thing and I think Victor's going to get into this in just a little bit, is Santiago, could you back up to the architecture there? This is a very complicated way of telling you that we're collecting a lot of data from a lot of different sources. We're putting it in a single location. And that last slide on the last section of there where it says visualization is very important, because once we have this data warehouse created, we can create individual dashboards for different stakeholders in the organization that need access to different information. So, for example, we do have a manager of on-street operations. We have a separate manager of off-street operations. They're going to be interested in looking at two completely different things. But one of the things that this tool allows us to do is to create custom dashboards that are built to the interest of the person that's actually ingesting them. Let's see. The other important thing I wanted to mention is not directly related to this, but something that's going on in the industry right now that's going to play into this quite a bit, and that's the challenge of pulling information from all these various sources. Today, for example, we collect data from some of the sources from a file that gets uploaded by the county, for example, just a standard comma separated value file that's updated. In other cases, we query data using standard SQL queries from a SQL database. From other vendors, we collect data using their proprietary API, which is kind of their own way of getting data. One of the things that we're heavily involved with here at the Miami Parking Authority is trying to shepherd through standards in terms of data communication in the parking industry. And we're heavily involved with both the Curb Data Standard and the Alliance for Parking Data Standards. Now, these are two different standards that kind of have slightly different focuses, but we really kind of push both of them. The idea behind both of these is to have one standard way of communicating information about parking assets and policies to other systems. The Curb Data Standard is shepherded by the Open Mobility Foundation. I encourage you to look into that when you get a chance. And the Alliance for Parking Data Standards is kind of supported by the IPMI, which is well, I'm sure you're all familiar with IPMI. The reason I bring this up is because right now we're having to do a lot of custom work to get the data from all of these various locations. The vision that we have, what we would like to see in the future, is for all of the vendors to support these standards so that we can use the same set of commands to pull data from all of the various sources. That would make it much, much simpler to build these kinds of data warehouses, because all of the vendors would be using the same protocols and the same language to communicate information about the location. So I just wanted to mention that we're heavily involved in pushing both of these standards, and it's not necessarily the focus of this presentation, but it is something that I think everyone should be aware of. Vic, do you want to go ahead and show off a little bit the dashboard itself?
I'll start. I'll stop sharing, Victor.
Perfect. Thank you, Henry, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here, so hopefully everybody gets to see it. Hopefully somebody could give me the thumbs up if they could see my screen.
Yeah, you got it, Vic.
All right, perfect. So good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Victor Rosario. I'm the Senior Manager of Operations. As Santiago mentioned, I've been in the parking business for 20 years, and I've done a little bit of everything. I used to work for a parking consulting company, worked for a private operator, but now the last 14 years, my life has completely been dedicated here to Miami Parking Authority. And it's interesting, when I started Miami Parking Authority in 2010 to where I am now, how data has become so significantly important, right, to what we do on a day-to-day basis. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm the type of person, I like to always be behind the scenes. I don't like to be up front. I'm the shy person here in Miami Parking Authority, but today Angel Diaz said, no, you are going to be there, and we're going to show the public actually what we do here and what we've been doing for the last years or so. And look, I'm happy to be here and happy to share information that hopefully you could take and take back to your operations and maybe tailor it, to your type of operation, but hopefully it will help. So again, here in MPA, we manage different type of sources. We have on-street, we have off-street enforcement. My case, I manage the off-street, which is normally the surface lot, the parking garages. But before we go into the demo of what are the tools that normally I'm working on and trying to make them work so the operation is more efficient, we always think of ourselves as data, like the importance of data, right? And a couple of things that came to my mind is how important is data, right, to streamline your operations, like make it more efficient. It makes it so much easier when you have data to make decisions, right, and so on and so forth. Improve the business management. When you manage, like in my case, we have like 60 surface lots, 6, 7 parking garages. You're talking about over 12, 13,000 spaces at this time. You need a tool, right? You need a tool that's going to help you make those type of decisions, and it's going to help you allocate and move your resources to what you have available. It also helps you with the marketing strategy. I'm sorry. Every day is different. And you'll see it in the presentation now that I'm about to provide you. Because again, a Monday is busier than a Tuesday in some areas. In some areas, Friday to Sunday, because there's more events, it's busier than others. And then the other thing that I think data is important is the new business. Data is going to help you understand it if you have enough supply, right, for your demand. And that's how you make decisions, either rates, either out bringing in more business or more monthlies, whatever it is that we need to do as managers, all right, to improve our operations. That being said, you have the data, which is great, but it's even more important and I think more efficient when you have all those details in one parking intelligence dashboard. Why? For me, it's time efficiency, to be honest with you. Again, I manage different. Now I only have 2. I deal with pay by phone. We deal with ski data. So I have 2 that literally I work on a day-to-day basis to look at revenues, length of stay, occupancy. So when you have this type of dashboard, what it helps you with is the fact of you have everything in one. So now you don't need 2 passwords. You just need 1, right? You go in there, you analyze your data with your team, make decisions based on that. And obviously from an operation efficiency also, again, having everything under one tool becomes so important. And again, this might be more for bigger operators, but I think it helps from little all the way to bigger ones, because the fact that you just have to go to one specific area and tool to analyze and look at your operations on a day-to-day basis, especially when you're a manager, I want to say supervisor sometimes, manager, senior managers, director, you need to be looking at your data on a I see it on a daily basis. For me, data is on a day-to-day basis because, as I mentioned, every day is different depending on the area here in downtown. So that being said, everything I've spoken about, we have been able to work as a team to put it all streamlined in what we call our in-parking dashboard. So I'm going to start clicking here where we have obviously what we call the heat map. And let me tell you why that heat map for me is so important. As you see all those little circles there, those are different zones. And I have it right now on my on-street side, but different zones, different surface lots that we manage with pay by phone. Now, I don't know if it happened to some of you, but during the COVID era, and even after the COVID era, it was very hard for us to hire personnel. So what happened was, at that point, we meet as a team and say, how do we allocate resources, right? So if a facility is busier than others, I want our resources to be close to those facilities, right? Instead of the ones that are a little bit slower and so on and so forth. So this map, what it does for us is exactly tells me what are the areas that right now are being busier than others. When it's red, it means I'm literally over 80 to 90%. Yellow, we're between 60 to 75, and then green is more 50%. So if I click here in the off-street side, there we go. I have the Courthouse Center garage, which is the one that I'm right now conducting the presentation. But if I look at it, there you go. You see all my parks equipment facilities, and they're on yellow, meaning all of them are right now over the 50%, 60, 70%. So at that point, and the reason I review this on a daily basis is we have to make decisions. Like right now, we have to allocate personnel on the downtown area, a little bit more north and south, even in the Coconut Grove area. That's why it's so important, because again, this helps us with the workflow and obviously improve employee productivity. And more importantly, I get to see the overview of the operations, no matter if you're pay by phone, ski data facilities, on street, it tells me what my busy areas are. So I love this graph just because, again, it has helped us allocate our resources more efficiently. Another tool that I'm sure a lot of you, not the majority that are on this presentation, is the occupancy. And occupancy obviously is very important. And I'm going to go here to the off-street again. I'm going to just use Courthouse Center Garage, which is the one, again, the most common one. And that's where the MPA offices are here in downtown. But why is occupancy for me so important? Well, again, it helps me manage my activity. As I mentioned when I started talking about the importance of data, is business management, right? It helps me realize what are my peak hours, what are my slow hours, right? It also helps me manage the sales. Why? I'm going to give you an example. Right now, here in downtown Miami, there's a lot of high rises building up. Now, you have 400 units, but they're building them with 400 spaces. Guess what? Sometimes there's 2 bedrooms, sometimes even 3 bedrooms. So people are going to need parking. So what this type of form helps me is I go and I see, okay, wait a minute. I see I have plenty of space available during the night times. So right now, as we speak, we have a program of what we call the resident program. We have right now within the Courthouse Center Garage and the College Station Garage, approximately 800 to 900 residents, which again, the majority of use is after 6 and before 8 a.m. So again, because we have this type of data, it helped us reach out to them and tell them, hey, we have the space for you. We could allocate you, obviously with restrictions. But again, if it wasn't because of this, we would have not known that we have all that space available to provide to our customers and residents here in the city of Miami. And again, more importantly, do you have the supply for the demand that's out there? This type of graph tells me, yes, at night, especially, yes, we have it available. The other tool or key factor that we use here in MPA is the length of stay. And I'm going to stay within the Courthouse Center Garage. Very important for us. And here I think I have, a month of data. So length of stay obviously helps me track customer behavior, monitor the market, right? As I mentioned before, market strategy, and analyze rates. So when I look at this, I want to know, how are the spacers turning over? Angel goes to me and says, Vic, we didn't do good here and there. So, okay, let me see. Let me go to these key components, KPI that we call it, and see where we're missing. So I go to my length of stay. I look at it there. I say, okay, transit looks like 1, 2, 3 hours, which the ones that are familiarized here in the city of Miami know that when you're in downtown, that's about the time that it takes for you to do business. Normally where we are situated here, it's mostly court, right? So when you go to court, normally an hour, 2 hours. And the data that provides to me shows me that that's the case. Now, when we go to the monthly side, which we call contract, monthly, don't pay attention to this one. This is, remember, we have over 80, 90 vehicles that are employed that are in and out. So they're considered contracts. So that's why you see that high contract for an hour. But regularly, we all know that our regular monthlies are within between 7 to 10 to 11 hours. Normally people come, do their work shift, work at their place. They stay 9 hours, and then they're out. But again, it helps me understand the market of what's coming into the building, how long it's staying, right? So again, if you can, going back to the sales part, can you add more inventory? Can you add more? We get a lot of requests for rentals. So based on this, we know, well, yeah, even though the occupancy shows that we're 300 or 400 at this time, we know that they're moving within the hour or two. It's going to give us that additional space. So that's literally what this type of information does for us. The other one we have, obviously, is let me see if it comes up. Okay, the income. All right, so income, very important. For me, I have a title for this, and I call it the summary of the key factor, right? The income, we meet on a monthly basis. We look at how we did. We measure, obviously, again, our KPIs, and we look at where we did, what we did. Did we meet projections, right? But more importantly, we sit as a team and we decide, okay, we're looking at the income now, and okay, if the projections were not met, where did we go wrong? I go back then to the length of stay. I look back to the occupancy. I look back to the heat map that we call it. So did those components made it enough, right, for where the income should have been higher? Or sometimes it's the opposite. Sometimes we exceed expectations, right? But more importantly, when you look at the income, it's my decision making. It's our decision making. Okay. Did the decisions we made based on the data we had, right, were successful? And bottom line is, we're in a business where a lot is dictated by what we did in the income side. Yes, we do a lot of stuff also for the city, for all that, but bottom line is we are measured, right, by the income. That's the summary of everything we do. Now, it's very important, and when you're looking at everything I've been showing to you, from the heat map, from the occupancy reports, from the length of stay, from the income, this is, and we all know it's a work in progress. Like, we sit every day and we analyze all this data and we say, well, we need to tailor it more. And the good thing working on this intelligence dashboard is that's what we've been doing since day one. We continue to tailor it. Now, again, for another operation, this might not work. A lot of people might work a different route. Bottom line, you still need the data. The data is what's going to help you, again, like I mentioned, streamline your operation, and obviously try in the fact of meet your goals and all that. But bottom line is, every operation is different. And that's what I've always tell everybody when we're talking, when we're gathering, is every operation is different. For Miami Parking Authority, I could tell you this intelligence dashboards that we have has been very efficient from all standpoints of what we mentioned. Everything consolidated within one, everything like we call it in our fingertips, right? But the bottom line is, you do want to use the data. And again, you could tailor it to what your needs are or to what your current operations are. But bottom line is, this is your decision-making type of information that's going to streamline and make your operations more efficient. With that said, I'm going to stop sharing my screen here, and I'm going to pass it on to Mr. Santiago Morales, which will give you, because again, we're in phase one. He's going to give you a little bit more detail as we move forward. What are the things that are coming, which is actually what we're going to call phase two. And again, continue to tailor what we currently have to make our operations more efficient. So let me stop sharing here. Santiago.
Thank you, Victor. For a person who doesn't like to talk, you did a fantastic job. All right, let's see here. Phase two for MPA. So we're actually going to show this to you very quickly because we only have a few more minutes, and then we have to get into the Q&A. But so now that MPA has the ability to kind of pull in the disparate data systems, now they're looking at, and we'll show you the tow data, violations data, yield forecasting, which a lot of people equate that with demand pricing, but it's not. Demand pricing is when you actually change pricing based on demand on a live basis. Yield forecasting is the tool that will provide you with the information to create demand pricing. We're going to do some predictive analysis of multiple data streams, and we're going to integrate Microsoft Copilot because this is all built on the Azure backend, Microsoft Azure. And so we're able to use the Microsoft solution stack. There was a gentleman who I spoke with I want to say a month and a half ago, 2 months ago. And he says, everyone's got dashboards. And he was absolutely right. Everybody has dashboards. Everyone provides, a dashboard that's all pretty and so on and so forth. But the value is not so much the dashboard. It's the intelligence behind it, i.e. what data can you eke out of it? And so, for us, that's really where we see the shift going. It's not, yes, we can provide a dashboard. MPA has dashboards. That's all good and fine. Let me just share here. But what's not good and fine is it's static. And so, as Victor mentioned earlier, it's not, you have the data, but now how do you utilize it? How do you consume it? What business decisions can you make based off that information? And if it's just a simple graph, well, that helps a lot. But then if we bring in from multiple locations, which is what MPA is doing, then it's not just, 1 or 2 feeds, it's everything. So as they mentioned earlier, tow data. If we open up here. So my tow revenue, my officers, by zone, if I look at a particular zone and I see that I'm towing a lot in that zone, well, what's going on? Is there not proper signage? Are people parking on the curb? Are they parking next to a hydrant? Should I repaint because I didn't put the yellow line that was there is no longer there because the city of Miami went over and painted over it clear, or not clear, but white. So these are the things like you start making those informed decisions. And then bringing it together from the violation perspective or the ticketing. So, am I enforcing properly there? If I'm not, why not? Is my revenue going up if I enforce, as to Henry's point earlier? So these are the decisions that you need to make that you start going through and identifying, does it make sense? So towed vehicles by month. By the way, this is actual live data. And then in conjunction with the Miami Parking Authority, we've put together some yield forecast curves. And this is Henry really brought in a good piece of advice. He goes, an occupancy adjustment. So for example, if I adjust my occupancy, because as you build models, mathematical models, the person who helps you build the model, just like with ChatGPT and Google and all those, are actual humans. So Wilford, who's not on this call, he knows what my projected occupancy based off 15 years of experience in a particular zone. And so I can create models where I can say, well, I'm going to adjust my pricing. I'm going to raise it up 2 cents. This is my current rate. This is not my projected rate. I think at this point in time, we're going to be, takes a second. Sorry, click on it. My occupancy is going to go down 34% different, or 34 people, 66% at this point, if I choose at my projected rate. And I'm going to make $105 less. So, these are the tools that help the city of Miami Parking Authority, I apologize, make decisions. And the reason they're able to do it is because, and this is different for every municipality, authority, university, so on and so forth, is that the MPA has an agreement, or I apologize, legislation that allows them to raise rates up to a certain limit. And so with this information, they can make some informed decisions and saying, okay, in this zone, I'm charging $3.70 an hour. If I raise it just 40 cents and 11%, how is it going to impact me within this date range and time frame? And you can see it'll probably impact quite a bit, unless it's in the morning. Then in the morning, it balances out a bit. So then you say, well, I'm not going to raise my rates. And generally, they do have legislation to lower rates. I'm just not sure if anybody actually lowers rates, but that is in place. So see, these are some of the things that MPA is doing, which is, forward thinking. And as Victor mentioned, this is not it's a work in progress, because now the tool sets that are available to them give them this flexibility, as opposed to in the past, they didn't have it. They have to jump from different place to different place. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. And we're going to open it up for Q&A. I don't know. Okay, so we have, with regards to on-street occupancy, does the dashboard consider non-transaction vehicle, placard use, scaffold laws, so on? And so, I'll answer that. Anything can be presented, and this will hold true for if anybody has questions with regards to that. If we can pull the data, you can present it. So, for example, if we have the tow data, the reason we have the tow data is because Henry pulls that tow data into a SQL database that they have in-house, and we query that information. So as long as we have access to the information, we can present it. If we don't have access, then we can't present it. Another question: how is Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry. Let me add something to that as well. So, as far as occupancy can be presented on the dashboard, like Santiago said. The trick to occupancy is having a tool to measure it. So, one of the things that we could do and we haven't done yet is make assumptions about occupancy based on paid transactions per zone. So we know that not everyone is going to pay, and I'll give you a great example. customers with ADA placards get 4 hours of free parking on street right now. So obviously there's going to be vehicles there that are not going to show up on the payment data, but we can still look at it and make assumptions about what the occupancy is actually based on the payment data. So that's one way to put it on there. We also have other locations that have actual physical sensors that tell us how many vehicles are there, and that can be brought into the system as well.
Thank you, Henry. We have a question: is how is usage and revenue info from EV chargers captured and presented? So it would be very similar to the way we do it today at MPA with pay by phone. So a pay by phone provides a feed, and we know what, we don't capture the personal information, i.e. the license plate, but we do know the zone that that individual's at. We do know the amount of time they've been there and the amount of, and what they've paid. So if the EV chargers can provide that information, then that can be presented as well.
Just to add to that real quick, I mentioned earlier the curb data standard. One of the things that the CDS steering committee is currently looking at is how to frame EV charging data and bring that into the CDS framework, so that providers like ChargePoint or whichever other provider you might be using can publish occupancy and usage data again in the same format as all of the other vendors. That's an aspirational goal right now, but we are working on that.
And that's one of the core limitations, is that if, as Henry mentioned, if we don't have access to it, if it's not presented in a format that is easily understandable, or not even easily understandable, because we can make the transformation of the data into something that makes sense for the particular, in this case, MPA, then it becomes very difficult. And that's always going to be the kind of the bottleneck. And how we present information, that's really how the end user, how the client is looking, how they want that information presented. So as I mentioned earlier, the back office is Azure Data Lake for the technical people, using analysis services, and then a front end of what's now going to become Fabric. It used to be Power BI. And so this piece of information, we as long as we pull it and put it in our data warehouse, we have the flexibility of presenting it in the format that is particular to your needs. And what do I mean by that? It's not so much that we go back and we say, here's the box of reports that we have. This is what we got. It's more of, look, this is the catalog of reports that we have. What else do you want to add to that? What else brings you value? Okay, let me see here. For Q&A, what is the source of your on-street occupancy data? Ski data and I'm sorry, Flowbird and Pay by Phone for Duke. Multi-part question. Does MPA have a single end user interface for contracts where customers buy and manage their monthly rentals? They do. I don't know, Henry, if you want to answer that, or.
Yeah, we have an e-commerce system in place where we sell monthly parking permits, be it on street or off street, to garages or on-street locations, lots, and that kind of stuff, and all of the there's many different variations of products that we sell. We sell regular permits. We sell residential permits that are restricted to residents that live in the area. There's many different flavors of it. We have a whole dedicated e-commerce system for that. You want me to go through the rest of these, Santiago, or are you gonna?
No, if you want to.
You have multiple access types in a single location. Multiple access types. By that, I would imagine you mean like using something like pay by phone or an electronic permit. I guess if both of those would allow you to access parking in an on-street zone or in a lot, I guess is what you're referring to there. So yes, we do have some of that. And of different contract types. Yes, absolutely. We have different contract types. In fact, just to give you one example, our main, our G1 garage here, we have an apartment building that's part of the part of the garage, and the customers there can purchase parking with us. So they can purchase a residential permit in the garage with us, and they can also purchase an additional permit for a different price if they want a second vehicle. In the same garage, we will sell parking for people that work in the area, come in through the day and leave at night, and a variety of other flavors in there as well. Does in-parking have CRUD capabilities with the contract data? So the contract data is actually pulled from the financial system. So in a sense, by the way, CRUD, what he's referring to is create, read, update, and delete, which is all the operations that you can do on a given data list. The idea here is that there has to be some way to update this information. And while we don't go into the dashboard and modify directly in the dashboard, all the data in the dashboard is generated by the sources. So for example, if we want to specify what the budget is for a location, we do it in the budget module in our financial system, and it's reflected in the dashboard.
We could, but generally we don't want to make those changes. We want either the finance or accounting team or so on, because it has to go through an approval process. Do you offer discounts on offer resident discount on garages? Angel, Victor?
Yes, thank you. Yes, here in the downtown area, we do offer discount parking for residents that live in the CB district, which is a central business district, right? So we do have a rate for them, again, but with a certain order limitations, as I mentioned in part of the presentation, is they have to enter by certain time and exit, so it doesn't affect our daily activity, and that's how they get their discount. But we do offer it.
Are you currently using the aggregated data to improve the flow of traffic / people to Miami Marlins Stadium on game day?
I can answer that. So currently, we are boots on the ground on game days at Miami Marlins Stadium. It's a free flow concept. So basically, all the prepaids, for example, there's a garage that has 2,000 spaces and there's 500 prepaids. So as the garages get full, we use the system that is there to kind of tell us, hey, you're getting full, you need to shut down the garage to daily park, transient parkers, and just reserve the spaces for the prepaids. So if that's what you're asking about, we do that on site with the system that we use there for that. So I don't know if that answers your question, because that's game day, real time, 4 garages, 5 lots that we manage during events.
I have another question.
There's a lot of other stuff that goes into the Marlins parking as well, and maybe one day we can do a completely separate presentation on that.
That's a whole another. Yeah, there's a lot more information. That's the high level answer.
Do we have a question? Do you have an in-house data analyst who builds these dashboards, or do you outsource it to a service / vendor?
So the building of the dashboards is part of our existing contract. So if we need to build something else, we just reach out to in-parking and have them build it for us.
I can add also to that. We do keep it. We kind of all have hands on to this, so anybody in operations can tweak or ask for a change to their dashboard, because it's specific by department, for example. So on street might want something different than what Victor wants, and as well as enforcement. And so yeah, we do have that, and we do have George, which is our in-house data analyst, as he also analyzes data and helps with that as well.
So basically, MPA, as part of their contract, if they need to add additional information, they just reach out to us, and our team works with the end user to build out what they're looking for. I don't know if I don't see any further questions. I don't know. Very good questions. I don't know if we want to give everybody 5 minutes back. Oh, with these analytical tools and visualizations, how long did it take for you to see the fail points? That's more for Victor.
Well, from our end, again, and as I mentioned, we're still looking at them because, again, remember, it's a work in progress. Right now, we're in phase one. This is something we're analyzing. I want to say for the past month and a half, probably two. So it's a work in progress. But again, it has take a little. I mean, I don't want to say longer than what we expected, but at least it's taking us to where we want to be. So we're happy with it, and we hopefully now with phase two to adapt more is going to make it even more successful.
Yeah, one of the things that we plan on putting in there is is more of a notification engine, like a if then. So if this occurs, and this is built by the not built by the end user, but end user defined. So if the end user says, hey, notify me when this happens, or I want to, once I have enough data for this, can we do a trend analysis? Because one of the things that and again, everyone has a dashboard, right? But the thing about it is that if you don't have the history, basically you can't do a trend analysis. So that trend analysis, 5 minutes, last question. Sorry, Kenny. That trend analysis is very important. All right, so last question. What was the first dramatic operational piece that was addressed with this tool?
To be honest with you, I think for us, I mean, for my department, for Off Street, I'm going to be honest with you, it was the allocation of the resources that we had. We were running very low in staff. We obviously, to put people in place, again, that's why I said that heat map, which is the first thing that came up, was the biggest, for us, the biggest change to how we currently manage. We used to run occupancy, obviously not to the point that we do now, length of stay, all that, but that heat map brought to us exactly what we needed to allocate the right personnel and the correct personnel in the correct areas to better help serve our customers.
How close to real time is a heat map? It's real time. Because keep in mind, we're pulling the data from pay by phone or Flowbird, and that's constantly being brought over. And so, I mean, obviously, we're going to go into the predictive later on once we have more data, but right now it's real time by the hour. So you can hit. I don't think Victor showed it to you, but you can hit this little play button, and you can choose a date range, and it'll start showing you from a heat map perspective the busy times in a particular zone or the whole area. Our pleasure. So I think Kenny, if you want to.
Yeah, if you have any more, I think that's it for questions. Santiago or anybody on the Miami Parking Authority team, if you have any last thoughts for our audience today?
I can just say real quick, want to thank everybody for hearing us out. Hopefully, if you have more questions, feel free to reach out to us and we can talk further. But again, it's just trying to share whatever we learn here on boots on the ground, be it data or whatever it is, and share with everybody, and also we pick everybody's brain as well, and with that hopefully the parking world becomes easier to manage, and I'm sure everybody can relate to that. Thanks.
Thank you, Angel. Victor?
No, just thank you to everyone. I really do. I appreciate everybody taking from their busy time. Obviously, we're in a busy industry, right? But we learn every day, and hopefully today, you guys were able to all the people that joined or were able to capture something that's going to help them help their operations or what is it that they do within their business. So thank you so much. It's now time for Cuban cafecito time.
Great. Thank you so much. And I want to thank Santiago, Angel, Victor, and Henry for hosting today's Learning Lab. And we thank you all for joining us today. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.